Sony is testing dynamic pricing on the PlayStation 5. Here's why the PS2 will live forever. And finally, is Sony really taking the fight to Valve, or are people misreading this situation? How's it going, everyone? As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. This is PSReady, my channel all about PlayStation. I hope you are having a great week playing a ton of video games. I'm playing through the Crew Motorfest. Their new content that they just put out is awesome. They built in a Need for Speed playlist where you get the BMW M3, and after every race, you get to add a cool upgrade to it. They introduced this new form of race to the series as well, where like you're in the map and you don't have a racing line you have to follow, and there's flares in the sky, so you have to figure out your way through the map to get from point A to point B faster than your opponents. It's on sale right now for I think $20. I highly recommend checking it out. Let me know what you're playing down in the comments below. But let's get into the first news story here, because this one is kind of interesting and there's really no good way to spin it, because PlayStation is testing out dynamic pricing on the PlayStation Store. This isn't the first time they've done it, but someone posted on Reddit and said they have two PS5 accounts and they wanted to play Red Dead Redemption 2, so they went to buy the Ultimate Edition and they realized it was more expensive on their account, someone who spends a lot more money on the PlayStation Store, than it was on his wife's account, which is an account that doesn't buy a lot of games. So like clearly, if Sony sees you spending a lot of money, they're going to leave the prices high, right? Like they're going to charge you $50, but if they see that you're a little bit stingier, you only play a few games a year or maybe even one or two every few months, they might drop the price a little bit to give you more of a discount to encourage you to buy a game that you've looked at on the PlayStation Store before. And the price differences were pretty dramatic. It dropped the game from $60 all the way down to $45 on his wife's account, which is a $15 difference. And I really don't like this. I know dynamic pricing was kind of invented by Uber, right? Like if you're in an area where everyone's leaving the bar at the same time, Uber's going to jack up the price because everyone's looking for an Uber and you're more willing to spend money. And then if you're in an area where no one is requesting an Uber and they really want to encourage you to, they're going to drop the price extremely low so they make some commission off the driver. We've seen this be implemented at stores already this year, like Kroger, I want to say, is introducing dynamic pricing depending on where the grocery store is at. Walmart, I'm sure, really wants to play around with this. I'm positive Amazon is doing it as well. This is just super scummy behavior, guys. Like, I don't really have any way to defend this, and I don't like that as far as game publishers go, that it looks like Sony is the first one to do this. Like, I play a lot on PC. I use Steam a lot on my Steam Deck and my desktop PC, but my wife has a Steam account to play games like Hogwarts Legacy and Stardew Valley, and I've always noticed the game prices being exactly the same. I'm 99% certain Nintendo doesn't do this because, like, God forbid they ever put any games on sale. They're really not going to do that this generation with the Switch 2. I would believe it if someone told me Xbox has done this, but as far as my research goes, I wasn't able to find an example of them doing this, and like that just creates a level of stress that I don't think a lot of people really want to deal with when they're playing on a gaming console, right? Like, I just want to buy a game, play it on my machine, and enjoy my night after downloading it for like 45 minutes or whatever, because games are massive these days, right? Like, I don't want to have to go through all this trouble to log into a separate account that's like brand new on my PlayStation 5 to make sure that I'm getting the best price on the game, because they could go crazy with this, right? Like, if you're someone who likes a lot of Rockstar games and for some reason you haven't bought Red Dead Redemption 2, they could say, oh, complete your collection for $25. And then your buddy, you could call him up and be like, hey, I just got Red Dead 2 for $25. And he'll be like, what? Why are you talking about that? It's like $60 right now on my PlayStation 5. And that just creates kind of animosity and a no fun situation for people playing on consoles. And Sony is just a little bit crazier than a lot of the other publishers when it comes to locking down the PlayStation Store. Back in the day, you were able to get digital codes for specific games from the PlayStation Store on places like Amazon or BestBuy.com, and you can still do that with Xbox. You can buy digital cards at GameStop, you can buy digital cards at the grocery store, you can buy digital cards on Amazon for Xbox, but Sony ripped that away because they realized people were finding out ways to get game keys and actually give discounts on them, and Sony was sitting there like, oh, the big reason we want people to move from physical to digital games is so we can completely control the price, so they just removed the ability to buy digital codes altogether. So I know we kind of treat it like a joke at this point when people recommend buying physical games whenever you can, but that's a really good way to fight, you know, dynamic pricing and stuff that's actually happening right now, like Sony giving one person one price for a game and someone else another price for the game, right? Like, we don't know if they're going to widely implement it. It's something that they've been testing for a little while, so they might be just drip feeding it out to different users, but I'd imagine that they're going to see good results, right? Like if you give some people a deal on a game, they're more likely to buy it, and people who spend a lot of money on the PlayStation Store are going to buy the game regardless. And it's weird because I think you should flip-flop it. Like if someone buys a lot of games and invests in your platform heavily, they should be the ones who are getting the discount, right? Like I think the person who buys 1 or 2 games a year should be the one that ends up paying full price if you are going to give one of them a discount. Like reward your biggest fan. Like that's the craziest thing about this. The account that had the most time on the PlayStation 5 paid $60 and the one that had the least paid $45. I see their thinking though, because they're like, oh, we want to encourage people to play on the console more. We'll just give them a discount on a game and cross our fingers for it. So yeah, I hope they see the backlash for this. I don't think it's a good thing. Thankfully, it doesn't seem to be widely implemented just yet. I've seen a lot of people ratcheting up the hate for it to 11, but you know, like it sucks, but it hasn't really affected me just yet. I buy most of my games day one. I pay $60 or $70. So, you know, I'm just telling you guys out there who might be discount hunting a little bit more than I am to keep your eye open and keep a lookout. But that brings me to the second news story of today's video, which is you don't got to worry about the PS2 going away because 99.5% of the games will be playable forever. So the best emulator for PS2 that I've used is PSReady. It runs laps around the ones on the PlayStation 5. It's able to be used on a mobile phone. You can use it on pretty much any PC or Mac out there, and it works excellently on the Steam Deck. And up until now, there have been some issues playing a few games on the platform, but they've gotten to the point where 99.5% of the games that were in the PlayStation 2's library run flawlessly on this emulator software. The list of games that don't work is relatively short. I think it includes like Driver 3 and of course Final Fantasy 11, because Final Fantasy 11 was one of the first big MMOs on the PlayStation 2. Like it came along with an optional add-on accessory that would add a hard drive to your PlayStation 2 because you had to download patches and updates for the game over the internet because it was an MMO. So a lot of games that aren't playable aren't really that big of a deal. And this is great because I've been going back and playing PS2 a lot more lately because so many of my favorite games from when I was growing up are on that platform. Like Need for Speed Most Wanted, that is probably my all-time favorite racing game. I love just starting up a new playthrough on my Steam Deck and running through the entire game with the Chevy Cobalt SS, which is a super underrated car in that game. You kind of want to get rid of it immediately, but once you start adding some body kits, some performance parts, you change the paint, add some vinyls, it's not necessarily the worst looking car in the world. Another game I really enjoy playing still to this day is Gran Turismo 4. It's the best Gran Turismo by far because it has the best single player campaign. It's not concerned at all with microtransactions or online racing, and you can get a free mod for it called Gran Turismo 4 Spec 2 that revamps the campaign, redoes the graphics, improves the performance of the PS2 version, and makes it an overall better game. And it's really cool having all of these games be playable on the Steam Deck, because where I really got into emulating was on the PlayStation Vita, because a year or so after it came out and Sony realized that, you know, people weren't porting a ton of games to the console like they wanted them to, and they weren't putting a lot of new games into development like they wanted them to, they ended up just adding emulation for PSP digital games and PS1 digital games. So I was playing stuff like the first 3 Resident Evils, Resident Evil Director's Cut, Resident Evil 2, and Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. I was playing the first Silent Hill. I played through Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker, Final Fantasy Dissidia, and it was an awesome experience for me because, you know, a lot of games weren't coming out for the Vita, but I always had this great backlog of PSP games I missed that I was able to get relatively cheaply on the PlayStation Store. Because once the Vita came out, they would end up dropping the price. So now, having a handheld like the Steam Deck where I can emulate basically every PlayStation 2 game out there indefinitely, it's great. And it makes me excited for this PlayStation handheld that Sony is currently working on, because it's going to be sick. You're going to be able to play PS1, PSP for sure, PS2, hopefully PS3, we're crossing our fingers there, PS4, PS5. Like that's going to be a 5-generation handheld where if you've bought these games digitally like I have for the past couple decades, you're going to instantly have a massive library ready to go, which makes it a great value proposition as well, because you could buy that thing and take advantage of a massive library of games you already own without even buying a new piece of software to play on it. It's great. So yeah, I think it's awesome that PCSX2 hit this huge milestone. I love PlayStation 2 emulation. You could build such a cool mini PC. I think Spawnwave did it. I really like his channel. He just built a really small emulation PC. He also built one running SteamOS. So if you're worried about these games disappearing forever, like your discs stop working or anything like that, Sony is not really that aggressive when it comes to taking down ROMs on emulation sites either. So if there's a game that you missed from the PS2 era that you can't get easily on the PlayStation Store right now for your PS5, I would recommend just emulating it, because PCSX2 is really easy to set up and every game in the PlayStation library will work for it except Final Fantasy XI. And finally, for the third news story here today, I'm going to do a little bit of a crossover with my channel Deck Ready and talk about whether or not Sony is taking the fight to Valve. And I don't really think they are, because they've played nice together in the past before. I mean, the Orange Box PS3 port was god awful because EA did it. I don't know why Valve paid EA to port that game, but it was a really bad iteration of one of the greatest collections ever. But then with Portal 2, like I mentioned in the last video, if you bought it on PlayStation 3, you could get a free copy of it on Steam, like free of charge, if you just bought the game new, and it's still redeemed in my account all these years later. So that was pretty damn cool. But you know, Sony making their own PC launcher is kind of stepping in on Steam's territory, and I don't really think they're bringing the fight to Valve unless they're total morons, because, you know, they can just look at the landscape around PC's ecosystem, right? Like, a lot of storefronts have tried to take on Steam. Like, famously, back around the time Crysis 2 came out, EA removed all their games from Steam and stopped selling them in favor of making EA Origin. That was a dismal failure, but they held on for a very long time. Ubisoft made Uplay, whatever you want to call it. That was a terrible launcher as well. It's still a plague to this day. Epic kind of had the best shot of taking some of the users away from Steam because they made Fortnite Battle Royale exclusive to the Epic Store on PC. They also gave away a ton of free games and they buy exclusive games. And they just don't understand that the big difference is you've got to make a better product than Steam if you want people to stop using Steam, because it's just a great product from top to bottom and people genuinely enjoy using it. So I don't think it would be smart for Sony to try and compete with them, but I don't think they are. I think the real thing they're going for is people like me who have a PlayStation 5, a PS5 Pro. They buy a lot of digital first-party games, and then when they bring their games to PC through Steam, there's no way for me to really buy them and enjoy them because I can't transfer my save to that game. It doesn't work with Helldivers, it doesn't work with anything, whether it's Spider-Man 2 all the way up to something like Days Gone Remastered. So if I want to get these games, I've got to pay full price for them and I've got to start my entire save over. So if I can just download a separate launcher from Sony and get access to all these games I bought on PS5 for free on my PC and have the saves transfer, I mean, yes, Steam's going to lose out on a few sales of Sony games from me, but like, I still buy so many games on Steam to begin with that I don't really think it matters. And I think the vast majority of people out there will just continue to buy Sony games on Steam. Like, they're going to be PC gamers without a console. I'd imagine that's the vast majority of the people playing these games. And, you know, they're not going to buy a PlayStation 5, but if they do kind of want to move between Steam Deck, PC, and PlayStation 5, they can just go get a PS5 and start downloading these games digitally with the app. I would understand if Sony went out of their way to make save transferring exclusive to the launcher version of these games, but if they don't want, you know, the whole PC audience against them from the jump, they will also add that feature to Steam. But again, we'll just have to wait and see because, you know, there's a lot of unanswered questions here. Sony is doing a decent job when it comes to PC because they are releasing games and they're pretty much quality ports across the board. There have been some duds, but the vast majority have been great. They are still learning as they go though. So like, you know, Ghost of Tsushima Legends, they can't make it work on Steam Deck for some reason. Updating the DualSense was impossible on PC up until like this year. This launcher they've been working on for multiple years at a time. They hit that PR roadblock when they tried to make everyone log into the PlayStation Network on Helldivers 2. So they've had some controversy with PC, but they've always been quick to reverse their biggest mistakes, which is good. And they've made sure that when they want you to log into the PlayStation Network for stuff like Ghost of Tsushima, you get a benefit for it, like being able to earn trophies from your PlayStation Network account and see your friends online. So like, they're slowly improving, but building your own storefront is not the easiest thing in the world. There's like a billion ways you can make people hate it, and there's only a few ways where you can make people really love it. And I think if they really want to give themselves the best chance to get people to just jump on board and love this thing from the jump, they really got to make sure they make it clear they're not trying to compete with Steam. They're just going to have to position it as something that's a little bit of an extra add-on for the PlayStation users who are on PC and get that engagement from them, because that's really all they want at the end of the day. So yeah, a lot of people are trying to position them against each other. I think Sony's biggest competition is definitely Nintendo now, but they're kind of both doing their own thing. And I think, you know, that's going to be the way it is now because Xbox is making a $1,200 PC next generation. But that's all I have for you in today's video. As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching and shape on.